Hi, this is Matt Miller from Ditch That Textbook, and I want to welcome you to the Ditch That Textbook Digital Summit, where we've got educators from all over that are doing amazing things in technology, pedagogy, inquiry, and more. And today we have a great one because we're going to be talking to Kasey Bell, who is the creator of the Shake Up Learning blog, and she always has all sorts of great Google ideas and tips and tricks and more. And so we got Kasey today to teach us some great stuff. So Kasey, why don't you take it away and do a quick introduction of yourself?
Hey y'all, so I'm Kasey Bell, and yes, I said y'all because I am down in Texas, based out of the Dallas area. I am a digital learning consultant for the Region 10 Education Service Center, and I run shakeuplearning.com and get to work with fabulous educators like Matt and other educators across the globe. I spend a lot of time trying to keep up with Google. And so a lot of times people associate Google with what I do. That is one piece of the pie there, but I am a Google certified educator, a Google certified innovator, and a Google certified trainer. So I am constantly just trying to keep up and trying to help other teachers learn how to use not only Google, but how to use other digital tools in their classroom and how to actually use those to leverage them for learning and transform the learning environment.
Yes, which is something that I think both of us love. And if you're like triple certified by Google, then I mean, who else could we want to do this, right? So, all right. So let's get started. We got a couple things that I want us to dig into since we've got you. And the first one is I wanted to talk a little bit about G Suite. And G Suite is this new term that Google has come up with. Formerly, we used Google Apps or Google Apps for Education. And so now they call it G Suite. And it's something that I've loved using in the classroom. I know teachers all over really do. And so one of the things that I love about it is that it really lets us do some things that we couldn't do before in our classroom, so that we couldn't do easily in our classroom. So I wanted to throw it to you and just see, in general, what is it that you think is so great about it that lets us do these things?
Well, first of all, the switch to G Suite is forcing us all to rename all of our our presentations and our descriptions and everything else across the gamut there. But I think it was a good move, and I sort of understand where they're going with it. But G Suite for Education, to me, is a really big deal for our schools and a really big deal for our students to have access to this. First, I will say I've seen a big shift over the last few years between schools that have gone Google and those that have not. It's become more about how many of you actually don't have Google anymore, because the assumption is, when I'm working with several school districts, that, hey, you've got Google, because you're kind of honestly not very smart if you haven't gone Google yet. So because it is free to schools, and they offer, this suite of tools for educators and for students. And within that, there are a few things that they're developing specifically for education that make it so powerful. One of the ways I like to describe using G Suite is really that you're moving from that static classroom to a dynamic classroom, because you now have a tool that's accessible 24/7. The learning never has to stop. And, even with whatever it is that you're creating or you're writing or you're researching, that process can always be ongoing. Like a Google Doc is a living document. It is dynamic, unlike the dreaded worksheet. Where you finish it and you turn it in and you're done. With something like Google Docs, the learning can happen throughout the year, and we can come back and we can revise and we can edit and we can add to and we can learn things. So I really like sort of that analogy of moving from that static classroom to the dynamic classroom, and the ways that the tools are going to help us make some of that 21st century learning a reality. The student-centered idea and all of these buzzwords that are so popular right now, trying to make that actual a reality in the classroom. I think Google is a great resource for that.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree with that. I love the idea of that dynamic classroom, because it makes me think of how students can create a file in Google. Like if they do a Google Slides presentation, and they can work on it while they're side by side in class if they want to. But then when one student has a study hall, then they can work on it while the other one isn't. And then while one of them is at basketball practice, the other one can be working on it. And then the teacher can pop in after dinner if they want to and just glance at what the kids are doing and leave a comment. And then before bed, one of the kids can hit reply. And it's like before all of this, that all either had to happen in the classroom or had to be arranged between the teacher and the student. And now you can really get like days worth of work done in the matter of 24 hours outside of class. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that really blows me away, I think.
Well, and even taking that outside of the classroom, because these are the tools that are being used in the corporate world, right, as well, in the business world. And businesses have all gone Google, the universities have all gone Google, and so we're helping prepare students for that environment. And jobs, even like with you and I, we collaborate all the time. We're using Google Hangouts right now. We use Google Docs, and that's an ongoing conversation that even though you're in Indiana and I'm in Texas, you and I always have a way to communicate, and we know how to make use of these tools to help us collaborate together. So I think that's a great example of modeling that. So
yeah. And then once kids have that ability and they're able to go out and use it seamlessly instead of having to learn it, that's pretty big. So I'm glad you brought that up. And I know that for both of us, one of our favorite things to do with these Google tools, with G Suite and anything that Google has, is that we like to find creative, innovative uses of them in the classroom. And I know whenever I present, I always talk about how we usually have this narrow-minded focus of what these tools are supposed to be. Like we'll look at docs and we'll say, oh, that's the thing that my students write essays with. Or we'll look at slides and we'll say, oh, that's what we do presentations with in front of the class. But there are a lot of things that we can do with these tools where if we kind of open our minds and we let ourselves innovate, that we can really create these cool activities. And one of the ones that I know that you've talked about is that we can use Google Slides, for example, to create ebooks, right?
Yes. And I'm with you. Actually, slides might be my favorite.
Yes, it is mine. I totally agree with you on that.
I love drawings too, but in terms of a lot of the things that I do day to day, I will use slides for all kinds of things besides just a traditional presentation. And so one of those was creating ebooks. So if you didn't realize this, you can create a Google slide. If you go to File, Page Setup, you can create a custom size, meaning you can make your slides the same size as a piece of paper, 8.5 by 11 inches. If you want it to look like the size of paper, but you could make it, whatever you want it to be. But that enables you to create ebooks, and better yet, get our students in that creation mode of doing those things. It's collaborative. The ability to edit and layer images in slides is really, really useful, especially if you're putting in any kind of pictures into ebooks. But in terms of using it for other reasons, I do a lot of image creation and editing in slides because it is so advanced. And a lot of times, just when I show people just a few of those little features like masking and cropping and layering and things like that, they just take off and they just start getting really creative. So I love tapping into that, but it is really easy. And then because you can then convert slides and export it into a PDF, which is the most universally recognized file format, even over EPUB. You can read a PDF on any device, so that ebook can then be shared, which is how I created the Google Classroom ebook. I made that all in Google Slides. Something I sort of learned the hard way over the years after fighting with Google Docs to do what I wanted to do when I would add screenshots and images. And I was like, why don't you just do this in slides? It would be so much easier. So, yeah, and so I have step-by-step directions too on my blog on how to create an ebook in Google Slides, kind of explaining those steps that I just mentioned. But yeah, that's one of my favorite ways. And a lot of people just don't know that. They don't know you can change the size of the slides. Now, it does apply to every single one. You can't have one slide be like a page and one be like a presentation slide. But the ability to do that and create images for your website, for your blog, and export those. So there's just all kinds of fun things that you can do with slides.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Now, I wanted you to dig in real quick onto what you mean by layering. And I think I know what you're talking about with that, because you're right. That is something that's really good to know. So can you tell people just briefly what that is?
Yeah. So when you insert images into slides, doesn't matter whether you're uploading or using, some of the other features in there, but you have the ability to lay images on top of each other. And so one of the ways that I show it at first is I will add a picture of a puppy, and
Nice.
then I put a little crown on my puppy because she's a princess, and so but I can layer that on top. So it looks like she's wearing that. I can crop the background. I can do other things, but then I can actually come in and I can type the word princess over the image itself. That's not something you can do in docs. You can do it in drawings, and actually I think there are a lot of similarities between what you can do in drawings and what you can do in slides, and they do have sort of different purposes. But with slides, the ability to then duplicate that and have multiple pages within that, you could have that being collaborative, where each student has their own sort of section because they're each working on a different slide, or collaborating on the ebook and things like that. So, but yeah, it's actually really easy to use and really easy to create. I like to create sort of logos for my presentations too, when I have like a title for it. When I was presenting last weekend at the Central Texas Google Summit, I did a presentation called Pumpkin Spice Cafe. And
wow. That's an amazing title, by the way.
Yeah. Short little plug. I will be doing that one at TCEA as well, if anybody's coming to TCEA in Texas in February. But
then Pumpkin Spice won't be available by then. You might have to give it a different name.
Oh, well, they have already accepted the name. So
so it's too late now. Okay, we're gonna go with Pumpkin Spice.
If it's cold in Texas, we're gonna still. So anyway, but I made the whole little image sort of mimicking the Starbucks logo, but with my avatar, and I did all that in slides. I didn't have to have a fancy like Photoshop or anything to do that. And so things are so much easier now when it comes to image editing and tools like Google, that all we have to do is just show a few of these little tips to our teachers and our students, and they take off.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the key feature that you use to make this whole layering thing work is to use the order, right? Where you can either right click on an image, or you can pull it out of the menu. And then if you use order, you can either send it forward, send it backward, or send it all the way to the front of the image, or send it all the way to the back of the image, right? Yeah.
Sorry, and I should have mentioned that. In the toolbar,
okay.
There is arrange. I think I've got a slide open. Let me make sure that I'm telling you right. Yeah, arrange is up at the top of the toolbar, and then under that is where you can find order. You can also right click on images. So as I was talking about with my little puppy example, if for some reason I had already typed her name before I added the puppy picture, so the picture laid on top of the name, then I would just change the order. So I could bring that one to the front like you were talking about. So which, if you've ever used image editing like Photoshop, that layering is very similar to how it works in the more advanced types of tools. But being able to do that, and it's really not hard to figure it out once you just start playing around. And like I said, it really spend 30 seconds showing someone that, and it just kind of goes viral within the classroom. So
right. Yes.
How to do that.
Right. And I know for me, sometimes one of the things that I like to do with that is I'll either in a Google slide or a drawing or whatever, I'll use when you go to insert an image, you can take a snapshot. I think it's using the webcam to take a picture. And so I'll stick one of those onto the screen, and then I'll start layering things on top of it. And I know whenever you add whenever you go to add a shape, one of the shapes under the callouts menu is a speech bubble. And so I'll draw a speech bubble right on top of that picture, and we'll put some text in it. And so just being able to keep track of that, it's more of that layering thing where I make sure that the picture is behind it. And The layering thing is almost kind of like having a stack of papers, isn't it? You move the papers either forward or backward, and you just want to make sure that those things that are going on top of the picture get on top.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then I know another thing that we both love to do is to use drawings, and Google Drawings is something that I think not everybody always thinks of. It's like we always think of docs and slides and sheets, which are like Word and PowerPoint and Excel.
Mm-hmm.
But drawings, I mean, there's some really cool things that you can do with drawings. So I was wondering if you could tell us A, what drawings is, and B, what some of the things are that we can do with it.
Okay. So at its heart, I would say drawings is an image creation tool. And so it might be that you're creating sort of like graphical organizer types of images, like infographics or flow charts or anything like that. Pretty much anything you can think of. But the whole point of it is that this is an image, so to speak, that has that layering feature in slides. If you wanted to save it and as a ping or import it somewhere else, you could do that. But what's great is it's part of the G Suite of tools. So one is collaborative. So kids can work on these things together. And, two, it can turn some of your lessons into more interactive types of lessons. So a lot of the things that maybe we had to have someone design a fancy game for us online in order to do it, or that we might be moving manipulatives around in the classroom, those can now be digital manipulatives using tools like Google Drawings.
Yes. I got to work with a kindergarten class in Ohio at one point. This was the coolest visit. I got to visit the school and like teach a little lesson in all these different classes, grades K through 5. And so with the kindergartners, they were working on basic addition and subtraction. And so what we basically did was we created a slide presentation and gave every kid a slide, and on each one there was a tree. We found clip art of a tree, and then next to it there was a basket that was just clip art, and then we found clip art of apples, and so we made a whole bunch of copies of the apples. So there were like 10 apples on the screen, and so we would start by putting like 4 of those little apples up on the tree, and we'd say, okay, there are 4 apples on the tree. What if we take 2 apples off of the tree? How many are left? And so it went through some of that basic addition and subtraction stuff. And so that was one of the things I loved, was that even the youngest kids are able to do some of that manipulative stuff like you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. In drawings, I think it's sort of misleading. The first time you go into Google Drawings, you don't see a huge toolbar. You just see this blank slate. And to me, I think that's sort of where people don't know what it's for. The background is that sort of gray and white checkered background, which means it's a transparent background. But when I was teaching it, I didn't spend a whole lot of time there because I'm like, okay, so you can add shapes, you can insert images, you can do these things. And so I'm like, really need to figure out a way for people to see the full power of it, because I kind of think drawings is like the unsung hero.
Yes.
of the G Suite of applications, just because it does so many more things that you just wouldn't think of. And because there aren't ready-made templates, and it's not a tool that aligns with something we had in Microsoft, that people don't automatically think of it. They're like, oh, slides, okay, I'll do a presentation, okay, I'll type my paper in docs. But drawing sort of takes us out of that comfort zone. And so we really have to think of new ways to do things in the classroom, because it's a new tool. And, that was sort of where the magnetic poetry piece came from, because like, do you understand? Like, if you can put an image on here, you can put an image of a ruler. You can put an image of, like we're talking about these manipulatives, and maybe these are like math manipulatives. I've seen a lot of people who did that. And I was a language arts teacher, and I don't know why it happened to be on my brain, the whole like, the magnetic poetry, the little tiny magnets of all the words on the refrigerator that everybody just kind of messes around. I'm like, that could be educational. I think
sure.
we could make that. I think I could do that. And I think I can make that all digital. And I think that I can do it in Google Drawings. And so that was sort of where I started. The first version was in Google Drawings, and just the idea of sort of supporting National Poetry Month. And it sort of spiraled from there. I had tons of people asking, how did I do it? How did I create it? And so, and I'm still to this day telling people it's on my list. I'm going to make a tutorial, but there's so many different ways to do it. And, some of the tools that I've used have changed over the years, but, so I've done like the National Poetry Month one. I did the Halloween version. And then I did one on a project with Shannon Miller for the Winter Around the World project. And we actually did the magnetic poetry, the winter version, in slides. And so, because like I said, there's so many similarities to the way both of those tools work. And so I wanted people to be able to see the pros and cons of whether you were using slides or you were using drawings. But so lots of different ways that you can do that. And so I think once teachers kind of see, oh, I could do this. Oh, I could have a graphic organizer as my background. I could have kids organizing information inside the drawing. I could have a T-chart. I could have a flow chart. I could create this interactive infographic, because guess what? I can link all of those objects within that drawing to things as well. So it just sort of becomes limitless. And again, that idea of creating that dynamic learning environment for your students where that learning can continue and they can continue to add, and you can continue to help facilitate that learning in new ways with those tools.
Yeah, that's awesome. As far as drawings go, and you're right, it is sort of a different tool than what we're used to using. And so I know whenever I talk to people about drawing, sometimes I'll tell them that it's almost like a digital poster board or like a digital sheet of paper. And so if we're familiar with kind of like poster projects, I tell them how Google Drawings can be kind of like, it almost makes it like a digital poster. And like you said, you can add links to it. And so with, digital posters, for example, your traditional poster, it's everything that fits on the poster board. It's all the pictures and all the text that you can fit on there, with the construction paper and the glue and the markers and everything. But if you do this in Google Drawings instead, you can use the fonts instead of your bad handwriting. Well, my bad handwriting anyway. I've got awful handwriting. And you can pull in images through when you insert an image, you've got that search button that lets you search all of these images. And then you can add links too. So you could link off to a YouTube video or to an audio recording or to a blog post or a website. And so instead of it being everything that fits in that poster board, now it becomes a jumping off point to other stuff. And when you add those links, you can even take a link, or you can link off to another file that you created in Google. So you could link to a Google Doc, or you could link to a slide presentation that kids have made. And so I really feel like it gives you the opportunity to do kind of like, in this case with like digital posters, it's an old idea, but it gives it a completely different twist and it kind of kicks it up a notch.
Right. Yeah. The whole idea of doing new things with new tools. For sure. Yeah, no. And that really is it. I think that, when people look at, they go from Google Drive and they look at all of the suite of applications as their first learning, and our first inclination is that substitution level. So we're looking for, okay, slides is like PowerPoint, docs is like, Word, that sort of thing. But eventually I want people to forget that those ever existed. I want them to think of Google as being its own entity. And because I think we can just take the learning so much further when we really look beyond what the initial purpose may have been for a word processor or a slide deck or whatever it is that we're working on.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we've moved so far away from those little slides that you drop into you remember when slides were actually on the slide projectors and you'd hit the button and it would pop one out and it would drop one in, and it's like, we can do a lot more with slides these days than just that, can't we?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So let's transition real quick to Google Classroom, because I know that's another big realm of Google, and I think that we can both attest to the fact that whenever we write about Google Classroom or whenever we talk about Google Classroom, there are always attentive ears. People are always interested to hear things about it, and so I know that that at least for me, using Google Classroom in the classroom has made things a lot simpler, things that we used to do a lot simpler. So I wanted to throw that over to you and see, how does Google Classroom sort of change things for teachers, do you think?
Well, when we first got access to what was Google Apps for Education, now G Suite for Education, great things that you could do with it. But in terms of managing it from the teacher's perspective, it could be a hot mess. Trying to figure out,
right.
Okay, well, they all have accounts, so they can all put it in this folder, or they can email it to me, or they can do this. And so the actual idea of managing assignments when you're using all of these tools became kind of a headache. And there were a lot of add-ons and things that came along that were helping with that, but it needed to be streamlined. And I think that's exactly what Google did when they created Google Classroom, which has now been out for a couple years. And it's the only product that they have designed specifically for the K-12 classroom and for teachers and students. So they have been improving it, I mean, just so much over the years.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because they are reading every single piece of feedback that comes in from teachers. So if you don't know this, in the bottom left of the screen, there's a little question mark and you can submit your feedback. And so, and I've heard this, I have talked to the Google for Education team many times, and they have said they read every single piece of feedback, and that's how they have made those changes. So things like the parent access or the guardian access, that was something that was requested almost from day one, and they have made that a reality.
Yeah.
So a lot, and being able to schedule assignments, we got that not too long ago. That was a big request, and all of those things. So they were trying to design this to work for the teacher. But what I really feel, and how I initially explain it is, it's an assignment manager for Google Drive and for other assignments now too. But for digital assignments and trying to get those, and that has been sort of the hang up, no matter what device you were using. I can't tell you how many trainings where that was the biggest question. Okay, well, they're over here creating on an iPad. They're making this on a Chromebook, and I've got a MacBook back here. Somebody else is taking a picture of what they're creating with their hands, and this is all for the same assignment. How do I get this all in one place? And it wasn't easy. There might be ways, okay, so you're going to have to go here, and you're going to have to use Padlet, and you're going to have to do this, and we've got a shared folder, and then you're going to have to go back to the computer. You know what I mean? So there were like 12 million steps.
Yeah.
And so what Classroom has allowed us to do is, it doesn't matter what device you are on. You can submit your work into Google Classroom. The teacher is going to know immediately when it has been submitted and can give immediate feedback on it, which, that feedback loop is so important.
That's huge. Yeah.
The communication process is improved. There is never a question when an assignment is due. And I taught secondary, and you did too, Matt, right?
Mm-hmm. So, yes.
There was always that, oh, you didn't tell us it wasn't on the board, it wasn't on the calendar, it wasn't there. Oh, okay. There is never an excuse, because it is right there at the top of your stream inside Google Classroom. And so, in fact, I kind of geeked out a bit when they started all of the integration with iOS. I've got an iPhone, but I have the Apple Watch too. Yes, I'm a geek. And but I get notifications on my watch when I get a new assignment in Google Classroom. And the first time that happened, I think I kind of jumped up and down a little bit. It was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. So even though if the kids are riding the bus home and they get a reminder, they get those notifications. Like I said, even, if they don't have access to devices at home, doesn't matter what device they have at school, they're going to have the ability to turn in their work, to collaborate, and to get that feedback.
Yeah.
And so I just think that has really streamlined the entire communication process for teachers and students. And I don't ever want to go back to the way it was before, before Google Classroom. So I actually have an image I use when I'm presenting on Google Classroom of what teachers looked like before Google Classroom and what they look like now. There's some animated GIFs in there for fun, but yeah, it's just totally transformed the way we can use the entire G Suite.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree with that. And even since Google Classroom came around, I know for me, I used to use the old G class folders, which was kind of a workaround for that kind of thing, that created a whole bunch of shared folders that kids could use. And even that was sort of complicated. It took a lot of figuring out to do. And so that has totally changed things for me. And I know whenever I talk to teachers about using Google Classroom, and I'm sure with you too, it seems like there are a handful of things that are really, really useful in Google Classroom that sometimes either people they're underutilizing, or maybe they're not using it in the most optimal way or whatever. And so I wanted to see if you had any suggestions for us of some things that we might not be doing in Google Classroom that we could do, or maybe some things that we could do different that would be better.
So, and you saying that about G class folders reminded me, I used Doctopus.
Oh, Doctopus, yes. Yeah. I never got into that as much, but yeah, that was another one.
Well, mostly I was using this with teachers who are my students now, but when I needed to give them a template inside Google Docs where everybody had the same document, well, that was really hard. And that was hard from a teacher's perspective to give an assignment, and I want everybody to have this. So you had to use add-ons like Doctopus. Doctopus sort of magically made all the copies. And that was sort of the image you had with the octopus arms, that it was making all the copies and giving them out and giving them permissions to the right kids, because trying to do that on your own is if you had as many kids as I did, there was no way that was happening. But the other side of that is Classroom took care of all of that. So if you give an assignment within Google Classroom that is a Google file type, it's a doc, it's a slide or whatever, and your template doesn't have to be like a full-blown template. It could just have a title on it or something like that too, maybe just a couple questions to answer. But once you add that as the assignment, you then have the option to make it one collaborative file for the entire class, or to make a copy for each student. And so that make a copy little button, to me, that is like the magic button inside Google Classroom. The fact that it will automatically do that and share it and give them all the notifications, it's all in their Google Drive and they're ready to go. So that's one thing that I want to make sure everybody knows, especially if you're new to Google Classroom.
Yeah, and regarding that, can you remind us where we find that, or what we've got to do to be able to use that?
So when you're giving the assignment inside Google Classroom, you have to add the file first, whatever file it is. Like I said, it has to be a Google file type. If you're adding like a PDF or something like that, you can't do it this way. And then you'll see a drop down next to the file that will give you those options. And I do have some screenshots of that on my blog and in the ebook as well. But yeah, so I just think that alone would have been enough for me to use Google Classroom. That one little functionality, because it was so hard trying to figure out how to not only get everything turned in, but how to distribute digital copies as well. So to have that. The other piece that a lot of people don't realize is the About tab is very useful.
Yes, I'm so glad you're talking about this.
So, there are really three main categories at the top of Google Classroom. You have your stream, your students, and then the About tab. And so for me, I used to use Google Sites sort of as a classroom hub. Like I had a website and I would put all of, they probably had links to Google Docs and things in there. So when I sort of switched over to using Classroom, well, Classroom is not really replacing a teacher website by any means, but there may be resources that I used to post on the site just for kids to go back to, maybe it's the syllabus, maybe it's the class rules, maybe it's those types of like long-term PBL projects that they've got to keep coming back to. And if you put that in the stream, it can get lost, because you can have so many assignments within the year, even within just a semester, that trying to scan through it and find exactly what you're looking for. So some of those more important documents could get lost. And so using the About tab is a great way to sort of post things that you want kids to go back to. Now, at the same time, you don't want that to get too chaotic and be full of, you could just link to a resource folder in Google Drive and have things.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And I do have an infographic on using the About tab, and that's one use. Another use that I learned from a teacher that I thought was really awesome was He would reuse a Google slide deck every morning for the warm up. He would use the same one. And so he would just delete the information and add the new warm up. And so the kids knew every day when they came in, they went to the About tab and they went to the warm up slide. Because that wasn't a full blown assignment, that's usually just sort of reviewing the information from the day before. It didn't need to be added as an assignment in the stream, but they needed to get to it quickly. So I thought that was pretty brilliant too. So you can reuse, those reusable files. You might have all kinds of, whether it's a warm up or whatever it is that you reuse throughout the year, that kids can come back to. So that About tab can be very useful for, and it tells you it's for classroom materials. But a lot of times I think when you just first start using Classroom, you don't automatically think of putting some of those things there. You think of putting it in the stream. So
right.
You can kind of balance that as the teacher.
Yeah. Yes, totally agree with that. Now, I know that Google has added in, fairly recently has added a couple of things that I know teachers have found useful. And you alluded to one of them earlier, and that is the guardian emails or the parent emails. And then the other thing is topics. And so I was wondering if you might be able to just touch briefly on those, because I know some teachers think that these are some really awesome features.
Yes. So the guardian one, and I will tell you that one a little bit more in theory, because like I said, teachers are my students, so I don't actually have to send anything to their guardians. So, but I will tell you as a reference, the Google for Education blog will post updates to Classroom. And so you can find out when these come out and get updates about that. But they did add that guardian piece in August. So that was relatively new, but you can get guardian summaries, and they can choose. So as the parent, they can choose if they want a daily or a weekly summary, which will tell them things like missing work, upcoming assignments that are due, any announcements or questions that may have been posted by the teacher. So it gives them a little bit of a snapshot of what's going on inside the classroom, which is very, very useful. And then the other feature that you were mentioning is the ability to add topics now into the stream. And I really kind of think of that more as like a tag to things within the stream, because that was sort of a problem that I was mentioning, is the stream just gets so long and is full of so many different things. But to be able to tag things, and I'm thinking I would probably have tags maybe for units of study or for different topics within the classroom, or maybe different types of assignments that we can come back to and be able to search through and find what you're looking for by going straight to that topic within the stream. So that's a little bit of them helping us make sense of the chaos that the stream can kind of turn into.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, not having any sort of organizational control over all of the things that you put into Google Classroom was really becoming an issue. And so I really like how they've added those topics. And then with the emails, to kind of follow up on what you were saying, one of the things that I think is really cool about the emails is that it will pull all of these summaries together for every class that a kid has, and it'll do it automatically. So that's not even something that the teacher has to do.
Yes.
It will generate those emails and it will automatically send them to the parents, and you don't have to do anything with it.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, my hands go up, because I wish I had that in the middle school classroom. Some parents that I would get an email every single day, ask, what did they do today? What did they learn? What are they missing? And so you would find yourself, spending lots of time communicating about, just a handful of students there, and this is going to take care of that all automatically. So
yes. Yeah. Now, another thing you alluded to earlier that I wanted to touch on real quick here is that you have an ebook, which I have to say is a really, really great ebook that gives people like it's almost like everything. It's kind of like a one-stop shop for everything you need about Google Classroom. Can you tell people about that real quick?
Sure. The Teacher's Guide to Google Classroom, and it's really a getting started kind of guide for teachers. So if you've never used Google Classroom, this will walk you like from step one and logging into your account and choosing your role and setting up your class and walking you through a lot of those features. Of course, we've had some new features, so those are not in the ebook yet, but this is step by step with screenshots and directions and showing you exactly how to do it. And then along with that, there is a free student guide. So that's a 15-page printable guide written for the student to follow in terms of what the student needs to do on their side of things. So for me, that was oftentimes the question I got a lot was, well, what does this look like for the kids on their side? So you can actually see both sides of the screen and see what it looks like when the teacher creates a new assignment, and then what that looks like for the student and where they need to click and how they need to turn in certain things. There are pieces that you kind of learn along the way, and there's a lot of confusion about how comments work inside Classroom because there are different types of comments and there are discussion threads and things like that. So, but I try to break some of that down inside the ebook. But a lot of teachers really like that student guide, and especially at the beginning of the year, the beginning of a semester, when they need to like give them the class code. There's even a little piece that you can print out so that the class code will be right in front of them, and what they're on a Chromebook or wherever they are entering the class, and making that work for them. So
yeah, that's cool. And I hear a lot of the same thing of, what do things look like on the student side? And it's not easy to be able to do that. I mean, you almost have to have somebody add you to their class and make you a student in their class for you to be able to see things on the student side, and you still don't totally get the full picture. So having those screenshots and being able to see things from the student side is really great. So I'm glad you included that. And if people are interested in getting this ebook, it's probably just as easy as going to shakeuplearning.com, because you've got links kind of all over that site, right?
It is. You can go to shakeuplearning.com. There will be a link on the slider on the front page. You can also go to the top menu where it says Google Classroom, or you can use a bit.ly. I have a shortened link, which is bit.ly/Google Classroom ebook. And it is available. You can buy it directly from me. You can buy it on Amazon Kindle. You can buy it from Teacher Pay Teachers. You can buy it from EduSense, and you can buy it from TES. So there are 5 different places that you can actually get it from, depending on what your preference is. I don't sell the printed version. It's not long. It's the teacher's guide is like 45 pages. So if you are someone who likes paper, it is printable. It's a PDF, and you can print it if you want to print it. But so we're saving a few trees here.
There you go. Love it. That's great. All right, cool. Okay, so we've talked about G Suite, Google in general. We've talked about Classroom. There's one more thing I wanted us to touch on before we finished, and that has to do with certifications. And I know this is something that some people sort of know that they exist, but might not realize all the different levels and everything. So I was wondering if you could kind of go down through the levels, and especially with those 2 Google Educator levels, if you could just tell us kind of briefly about those.
Yes, and I have a little table that has all of them in there. Do you want me to do a screen share on this?
Oh, if you've got it, yeah, that would be awesome. Okay, that'd be great.
Let me get that open here. It's in one of my tabs. It's open right now.
Yeah, that's okay. And this is, while you're opening that, this is something that has changed fairly recently anyway, where you used to have what was called, I think, a Google Educator, and there were some tests and stuff that you had to pass. And if we're being totally honest, the training center for all of that was really bad, and the tests were outdated and everything. And so Google has updated those in the not too distant past. And so those programs, I think, are a little bit better. They're more streamlined, and they've got some better resources. And then yeah, so those are some of the ground level ones, and so that's something that I'm interested in hearing from you. And it looks like you got your graphic up.
Yes, and let me tell you first, because I know I have mentioned tons of resources already, that I have created a special page just for this discussion, Matt, for your summit. And so that is shakeuplearning.com/DTT for Ditch That Textbook. And so Matt will probably post that link alongside this video, and I'll put everything on that page. So everything that I've mentioned today, you'll be able to access. So don't worry if you're not catching every link, because there are several, and you can even just see across the top how many tabs I have open right now. But so this is a comparison of the 5 Google certifications. And by the way, this comes from a blog post on this, where I have a free ebook if you want to download the guide to Google certification. So if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, that's a 21-page handbook explaining all of these. And so there are 5 different Google certifications. One of these is technically not just for education, but I like to mention it because I know a lot of people in the audience fit in the IT side of things as well. So we have Google Certified Educator Level 1 and Level 2. And so level 1 is really that fundamental integration of Google Apps in teaching and learning. And so there is a course in the Google Training Center that is linked right here on this page. And so you go through the course, work through the coursework, and then you take the exam. There's one exam. You have 180 minutes. It's $10. Once you pass that, you're level 1 certified. There's no special application or anything associated with that. Level 2 is just going to kick things up a notch. So level 2 is really the advanced level of integrating Google Apps and G Suite for Education in the classroom. And these two are very much focused on what you do in the classroom, the actual application of it, and not so much on the how-to side of things. And so in the Google Training Center, there's an advanced course for level 2, and then you take the level 2 exam, 180 minutes, it's $25. Now, you do not have to take level 1 before level 2. So some people have kind of skipped level 1, and that's okay. A lot of people want both badges, so you can go ahead and do both if you want to. I was a developer on these courses, so it's very useful in terms of what they have put together and making this applicable in the classroom. So when they added these, this really, I think, was a good idea to embed this, because before we really just had the 2 at the bottom, and that didn't really fit for every educator out there. So if you're a classroom teacher and you're wondering where to start and you just want to learn more about Google, I would definitely start with level 1 there. Now, the next one here is the Certified Administrator. And this one is really designed for those people who manage the domain, the Google Apps domain, or the G Suite for Education. I'm still trying to get used to saying that. G Suite for Education domain. So if that is you and you know what that means, this is the test for you. So they have a course for that, and then they have an exam. This is kind of an expensive exam. It's $100, but of course, this one is not just for the education world. This one is also for those that manage the domains in the business world. So no application, take the exam and pass it. So I know a few people in education who have done that one as well. And then we have Google Certified Trainer. And so this is really designed for those who are out there delivering professional development and teaching others how to use Google in the classroom, like you and I, Matt. And so this is a newly updated program. So the Certified Trainer program just got an update in September, and they completely revamped it. So now there is a online course, the trainers, forgot what they call it, the trainers course, and 1 exam. We used to have 5 exams to become a trainer on top of the application. So now they have taken it down to 1 exam. And the shift here has been from the how-to to best practices and good pedagogy in terms of delivering professional learning. Adult learning theory. Yeah, it was a really good shift. And obviously the pressure of trying to pass all 5 of those exams was pretty tough. But, and not to say this isn't challenging, but it is much more focused on pedagogy instead of just the how-to, where to click kind of stuff. So you go through that course there, you take the exam, which is 90 minutes. It's only 25 questions, $15. and you do have to then apply. So there are other requirements within the application. You have to submit a video. You have to answer a lot of questions about your experience and a case study that you have worked with and things like that. And this one really has been my focus in helping others become certified trainers. I have many more resources on this than any of the other options, although I'm hoping to change that very soon. But I have lots of free resources and free videos that will break down that entire process there. And then I created my own course to sort of do some hand holding. So because you can work through Google's self-paced course, and it's great, and that's fine, but some people really just want that extra hand holding. Tell me every single thing I need to do, give me some tips on the application, what exactly is required. There's actually some things that you may find on that trainer skills assessment that's right here that are not in the Learning Center as well. So I am sort of helping you understand some of the other topics that are covered in that. So that is the Become a Google Trainer course. I'm just going to flip over right here. So you can go to becomeagoogletrainer.com and enroll in the course. The VIP course is only available for a limited time, but there are videos in here. There are 3 videos. And look at that. Who's that guy right there?
Hey, I know that guy.
All of the details and information about what's included, who it's for. So if you're interested in that, you want to become a trainer, take a look at this. And again, that's just becomeagoogletrainer.com is the link for that one. Now, back to the other certifications. So I'm sort of moving up, I think, in difficulty in terms of the education ones here. So trainer does require that assessment and an application. So you have to be approved by Google in order to get that stamp of approval. And the last one is the Certified Innovator. And that is the program that Matt and I actually went through together. So back in the day, it was called Google Certified Teacher, and now it's called Certified Innovator. And so innovators are the creative thought leaders, and that's who Google is looking for. They're looking for those people who really step out, who have a passion for innovation in the classroom, and that are going to be ambassadors for change. So there is one new requirement since Matt and I went through this, and that is that you actually have to become level 2 educator before you can even apply. So that's why this advanced course is so you actually have to get this level before you can apply for the Innovator Academy. So this is a special academy that you attend. I believe it is still 2 days. And it is very limited and very competitive. I believe it's still around 50 or less that are accepted into each academy, and that's across the globe. So it is a much smaller group, a much more selective group to be a part of. And so you do have to go through that, and the application requires a video and several other things. But I will say that one was the hardest of all of the ones that I have worked towards.
Yeah. And aren't there like hundreds of people that apply for that? I mean, I don't think Google publishes any numbers, but that's just what I've heard, that a lot of times there are hundreds of people and they've got to narrow it down to somewhere in the neighborhood of 50.
Yes, it is extremely competitive. Yeah, hundreds. And even because since they made the change a couple of years ago, they have, sorry, I'm going to unshare the screen here, but they have changed that so much, but there haven't been as many. In fact, there were not any academies in 2015. And I think there are only like maybe 2 or 3 this year. So there were not a lot. Matt and I were actually in the last official teacher academy in Austin here in Texas. So Matt, you want to talk about what that experience meant to you?
Yeah. So for me, I think part of it was one of the reasons I wanted to apply for it was just kind of like validation of some of the stuff that I was trying to do in the classroom. I thought when I was going to go there that it was going to be this amazing conference and I was going to learn a million new things about Google tools that I didn't know. But the reality was that I did learn a handful of new good things, but it was probably for me more about the connections that I made, because I was in the same building, a lot of times in the same room with these other 50 amazing teachers that were doing great things with Google and beyond in education, and just getting to meet them and hear some of the things that they were doing and to learn from them. I think that was probably the most beneficial part. Would you agree with that?
Totally agree. I don't think we'd be having this conversation if it wasn't for the Google Teacher Academy.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
You and I knew of each other, had, maybe shared a few tweets here and there before that. But yeah, I think the conversations that we had and the connection that we made there, and we've been collaborating ever since, pretty much.
Yeah.
And, and I think that the friendships and the networking there was just incredible. Nothing can really compare with that. Of course, you're on a Google campus when you get to go as well, which is super cool. And so you kind of are in this inspiring space and learning, new things and new ideas. And I think they've really done some great things with the shift to the Innovator Academy, and really focusing on their projects now and their mentors that you get as part of that process. So, and they just had the anniversary. Matt, did you attend the YouTube live event?
I didn't, but I saw that they were happening.
Yeah, I caught part of it. I was in there for just a little bit. So we just had the 10-year anniversary of the Certified Innovator Program. And so there were a lot of OGs in there, little originals, who went to the very first one in Mountain View, and were sharing that. But it's a pretty good milestone in seeing. So we were all connected via YouTube Live. There were people in Mountain View, people at the New York offices, and people, I forgot they did one more. I forgot where they were. But anyway, they were all connected. I was just watching the event from home, but it is something special to be a part of, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. And I know that's just about the certifications in general. I know that's something that sometimes is a little bit mysterious, even though there's lots of information about it out there. It's still something there where if someone can kind of break it down for you, I think that's good. And if anybody's interested in becoming specifically a Google certified trainer, I've seen Kasey's course. I've seen the videos. I mean, it is this huge, thorough course with lots of videos. It's almost like having personal access to Kasey with the videos. There are, workbooks and worksheets and cheat sheets, and she's just got a ton of stuff in there. So if you're interested in doing that and would really like some structure, I think that's a good way to go. So so to kind of wrap this up, I know we've talked about a bunch of stuff here with G Suite in general and Google Classroom and the certifications and everything. So this is great. I know if you're interested in getting more information from Kasey, you can go to her website, shakeuplearning.com, where she writes regular blog posts. If you subscribe to be an email subscriber, you're going to get those right in your inbox. And then Kasey, I know we're still sort of in the works on this, so this may be a little bit of top secret information, but we're working here just briefly at the end. We're working on a little bit of a project that we're hoping to launch pretty soon, right?
Yeah. Crossing our fingers.
Yeah. So we're working on collaborating together on creating a podcast. And so what we're hoping to do is to have these regular podcasts. Podcast is kind of like a digital radio show almost, where you can download the episodes to your phone or your device. And so we're looking to start one of those on the topic of, surprise, surprise, on using Google in the classroom. We feel like there's a lot of good news out there, tips, people that we can talk to, where we can bring some real value to people on a regular basis. And so that's something that we're looking to start. We're hoping to get it launched sometime at the beginning of 2017. We're working together with Chris Nesi, who has the great House of EdTech podcast and has helped a lot of other people with their podcasting endeavors. So that's something that we're really looking forward to. So if you stay subscribed to Kasey's blog or my blog or both, that's something where we'll be putting updates out on. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about this.
I am too. That's I'm really excited to see what we can do and the audience that we can reach through this, and being able to communicate with even more teachers across the globe. So I think it'll be fun.
Yes, me too. All right. Well, hey, this has been awesome. This has been a really value-packed video. I think we've touched on.
Our first podcast.
I don't know. I guess we kind of did, didn't we? I didn't think about it that way.
I didn't either.
There you go. I like that. So, all right, great. Well, anyway, thanks so much to those of you that have joined us for the Ditch That Textbook Digital Summit. Hopefully, you're going to get a lot of good out of this, and we hope to see you on another video. Thanks again.
Thanks, Matt.